The 2026 World Cup is on track to be the worst in the tournament's history, and it has almost nothing to do with what happens on the pitch. The biggest, richest, most expanded World Cup ever is pricing out the very fans it claims to celebrate. For nearly 100 years, the World Cup was the one event that genuinely belonged to everyone. A factory worker and a billionaire could end up in the same stand, watching the same goal, singing the same songs. It was football's great equalizer. Now, for the first time, many fans are looking at the largest tournament ever staged and feeling something closer to dread than excitement. So today, we break down how the biggest celebration in football became the most expensive ticket on earth, why adding more of everything might actually give us less, and why the players themselves could end up giving us the worst football we've seen in a generation. My name is Nick, and this is the Finance Bureau. The World Cup used to be priced in a way that put fans first. For decades, FIFA, which is the world football's governing body, which is responsible for staging the World Cup, ran a tiered ticketing system. And every recent tournament featured something called a, quote, Category 4 ticket. Now, this was the local resident tier. It's basically deliberately subsidized seating reserved for fans of the host nation. At the last World Cup in Qatar in 2022, a Category 4 seat cost around $11. In Brazil, Russia, and other recent host nations, equivalent local resident tickets were priced at similarly modest sums, keeping entry accessible to ordinary citizens. So, no matter how grand the spectacle became, there was always a door left open for ordinary people to enjoy football's equivalent of the Olympics. And that door was always the whole point. But for this year's tournament, co-hosted by the US, Canada, and Mexico, it's been bricked up entirely. FIFA has eliminated the local resident tier for the first time in modern history, and there is no equivalent. And once you remove the floor, the ceiling becomes the only thing that matters. A Category 1 group stage seat now runs between $450 and $990. A quarterfinal that cost $425 in Qatar now starts at $1,360, a 220% jump, and the average group stage ticket price has more than doubled from around $253 to roughly $563. And the final, the base Category 1 seat will set you back $6,730. But if that seems pricey, then make sure you're sitting down, because there's a new premium tier called Front Category 1, and that one reaches $32,970. To put that into perspective, that is more than 20 times the top price of any World Cup ever held. The whole structure has been rebuilt for a different customer. And it gets worse, my friends, because for the first time in World Cup history, FIFA has introduced dynamic pricing, which is just a fancy word for saying the price moves with demand, exactly like an airline seat or a concert ticket. The opening United States match saw seats surge past $4,000. And between October 2025 and April 2026, FIFA raised prices on more than 90 of the 104 matches by an average of 34%. By the time the tournament began, the official primary inventory was effectively gone, forcing nearly everyone into the resale market. There, a single round of 32 seat ranged anywhere from $2,823 to almost $22,000, depending on the platform. A pair of final tickets averaged around $16,849. And get this, guys, FIFA's own resale marketplace skims a 30% surcharge on top. The result is that the total ticketing and hospitality revenue is projected to hit $3 billion, which is a 216% increase over the roughly $950 million generated in Qatar. Now, this hasn't gone unnoticed. Attorneys generals in New York and New Jersey have launched investigations into FIFA's ticketing practices, including allegations of fake scarcity and price gouging. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum called the costs out of reach for ordinary citizens and skipped the opener entirely. In FIFA's defense, its president compared the prices to the NBA finals and said they simply reflect the local market rates. And by the way, if you want to keep up with stories that directly affect your portfolio, then you should be reading the Finance Bureau newsletter. It's absolutely free, and we break down everything regarding global finance, commodity markets, macroeconomic trends, and monetary policy so that you never miss what truly matters. All you have to do is click the link in the description or scan this QR code on the right of your screen to get started. And now, back to the football, because the frankly ludicrous prices would sting far less if the product on the pitch were actually better. But it might in fact be worse. This is the first 48-team World Cup, up from 32 at previous tournaments, and that means 104 matches instead of 64, which is a 62.5% increase spread across 12 groups of 4. But here's the problem. Of those 48 teams, 32 will advance past the group stage, and that's 2/3 of teams making it through. In other words, a team can lose and still progress. The do-or-die jeopardy that defined every previous World Cup group has been diluted. ESPN's Gabriel Mercotti called the format, quote, clunky, and said it, quote, lacks jeopardy. Even UEFA president said that it produces, quote, a huge number of matches that are completely uninteresting. And the analyst Nate Silver compared just reading the new draw to navigating a, quote, Tokyo subway map. Now, to be fair, some smaller nations have surprised everyone, with Cape Verde drawing against both Spain and Uruguay, and the Democratic Republic of Congo holding Portugal. But then you get the result like Germany beating debutants Curacao 7-1, and the dilution concern stops being theoretical. So, why expand at all? Well, at the risk of stating the obvious, follow the money. FIFA's 4-year revenue cycle has grown 72% from $7.57 billion to roughly $13 billion. Broadcast rights alone jumped from $3.1 billion to $4.3 billion. The expansion is sold as inclusion, but the financial incentive is far louder than the rhetoric. And if the format dilutes the football, then the branding dilutes everything around it. Every previous World Cup carried the fingerprint of its host. Brazil's hand-painted color in 2014, for example, or South Africa's mascot Zakumi in 2010. This one is hosted by 3 nations, and it shows. The official slogan, "We are 26, and a logo that's little more than the trophy stacked on a number have been widely mocked, with designers calling it among the worst World Cup emblems ever made. And as to what "We are 26 actually means, well, it's anyone's guess. Meanwhile, there are 3 separate mascots, 1 per nation. There isn't even a single anthem either, just a scattered soundtrack. Although, given how dire some of the official anthems have been in the past, maybe that's no bad thing. And FIFA's venue dressing program has been one of the most aggressive sanitization efforts in modern sports history, covering non-sponsor branding, renaming the SoFi Stadium to, quote, Los Angeles Stadium, and protecting an estimated $1.8 billion in sponsorship value in the process. As one critic put it, FIFA risks tearing out the game's soul to grow its brand, and once that soul is gone, you have to ask, what's left to sell? And then there's the simple matter of getting there. This tournament spans 16 cities, 3 countries, and 4 time zones. Vancouver to Miami is nearly 3,000 miles. Spain's path, even just winning their group, involves a journey of 12,593 kilometers. Compare that to Qatar, where no stadium was more than about 50 miles from another, and fans used a single hotel for the entire tournament. But the travel is the easy part. Nationals from 19 countries face full entry bans to the United States, with more than 20 facing partial restrictions. Visa processing timelines in many regions stretched far beyond what fans could realistically navigate after purchasing tickets, with severe backlogs and rejection rates making attendance impossible for many international supporters. And it isn't just the fans that are suffering either. The first Somali referee ever selected, Omar Artan, was denied entry at Miami despite a valid visa and a diplomatic passport. Iran's team also faced severe visa restrictions and obstacles, with at least 15 staff members initially refused US entry, forcing the federation to scramble for alternatives and lodge formal complaints with FIFA. Qatar had hire cards, Russia had fan IDs, but this World Cup has no equivalent pathway at all. And when FIFA's president was asked about the chaos, his advice to everyone was to, quote, chill and relax. Good to see he's in touch with the feelings of the ordinary fans. But the financial cost is only half of the problem, because the product on the pitch is also suffering, with many of players arriving at this tournament running on empty. Elite players now average 70 to 80 matches a season, up from fewer than 50 a decade ago. Studies and player union data showed that the vast majority of elite players in Europe's top leagues failed to receive the recommended 28-day off-season break, leaving players chronically under-recovered. Some elite clubs had pre-season windows measured in days rather than weeks, stripping the players of essential recovery and preparation time. Some of Europe's elite defenders and midfielders logged upwards of 60 appearances in a single campaign, with players like Arsenal and Spain's Martin Zubimendi and Liverpool and the Netherlands' Virgil van Dijk among the most heavily used in their respective domestic leagues and an expanded Champions League tournament. And this is before they've even kicked a ball at the World Cup. The consequences of such a workload are physical and measurable. Chelsea saw a 44% spike in injuries after the Club World Cup. One of their midfielders faced grueling travel across multiple continents during the Club World Cup, playing several matches in rapid succession with minimal recovery in between. So, think about what that means for you, the person who just wants to watch a great game of football. Fans turning in for peak performance might instead find exhausted athletes managing their bodies to try and prevent injury. The drama could easily be replaced by cautious, leg-weary matches played in record heat, leaving viewers with a tournament that offers more games but lower quality. FIFPro, which is the players' union, filed an antitrust complaint against FIFA in 2024 over exactly this. Now, the two sides did sign a truce in June 2026, but observers were blunt that the deal does nothing to fix the congested calendar. PFA chief Mahetu Malongo warned the whole thing risks becoming, quote, survival of the fittest rather than a showcase of elite quality. So, guys, let's take a step back and look at who actually wins here. FIFA wins with a tournament cycle worth $13 billion. The broadcasters win, the sponsors win, and the premium hospitality customer paying nearly $30,000 for a single seat is welcomed with open arms. The losers are the local fans who lost the only ticket they could actually ever afford, and the international supporters facing a $10,000 plus trip and a tough time at the US border, and the players being run into the ground to fill more airtime. And this isn't a problem isolated to football alone. Across sport, private equity is buying in. The sports technology market is forecast to balloon from around $32 billion to nearly $140 billion. And broadcasts are being splintered across endless subscriptions. The warning signs were already there at the 2025 Club World Cup, which left roughly 1 million empty seats during the group stage, despite a claimed global audience in the billions. The author, Jules Boykoff, captured the paradox best, noting this looks less like a World Cup of inclusion and more like a World Cup of exclusion. The era of the World Cup as football's great equalizer is ending, replaced by something larger, richer, and emptier, where the tournament keeps growing precisely as the experience shrinks. We already know 2026 will be the biggest World Cup ever. The real concern is that football has finally grown too big for its own good. But what do you think? Is the 2026 World Cup a one-off misstep that the football itself will rescue? Or is it the clearest sign yet that the sport is being run for revenue rather than for the fans who actually built it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you want to understand how endless expansion is reshaping the money behind the modern sport, then you can check out our breakdown on that right over here. That's all from me today. As always, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. This is Nick, signing off.